Welcome to Stopping a Restaurant from Becoming a Pestaurant. I'm Dr. Stuart Mitchell with Pest West. Today, we will raise your fly Q. Disclaimer, this presentation is intended for educational purposes only and does not replace independent professional judgment.
When you think of the reasons people end up in the ER, you probably wouldn't think of West Nile virus from mosquitoes, asthma attacks from cockroaches, hantavirus from rodents, or Lyme disease from ticks. Even bites from fire ants and other stinging insects send 500,000 people here every year. But you could make a difference in helping to protect your family from pest-related illnesses. Go to pestworld.org to learn how. Why wait until there's an emergency?
An outstanding retro PSA by our own NPMA. We truly are pest management professionals, but we are also public health professionals. What am I? I'm 0.40 inches long, weigh very little, fly 4.5 to 15 miles an hour. Most active, 2 to 4 p.m., live about 60 days, disperse 65 feet to 27 miles, see with mosaic vision, hear with and feel with bodily hairs, taste with my feet, communicate with pheromones, and locate malodorous food-filled dumpsters with my antennae. I'm the ultimate dumpster diver. What am I? I'm a housefly. See you inside. An adult housefly male, taste testing, a carbohydrate food spill on a surface. We know it's a male because the compound eyes appear to be touching. This is a unique sexual dimorphism in dipterans or true flies. The compound eyes appear to be touching, it's a male. If there's more of a distance between the two compound eyes, it's a female. A distinct sexual dimorphism of dipterans or true flies. Adult filth flies consume 1.5 to 2.3 times their body mass, and notably contaminate significantly more. Look at the filth fly mouth parts, the pseudoesophagus, this organ, which extends from the head to feed on, taste and feed on various substrates. There are folds within the fly mouth parts which harbor bacteria and pathogens, lots of surface area in those invaginations, allowing the filth flies to be very successful at moving or vectoring pathogens or filth to food and sensitive environments, sensitive spaces. This is well demonstrated through the scientific method, reproducible results, multiple studies. Here we have one from Kilgerm and Ashton University research, bacteria carried by flies, conducted by our own Dr. Matthew Davies and Dr. Anderson. Again, multiple studies to well demonstrate flies as vectors of pathogens. I'm going to apply a principle from forensics called Locard's Exchange Principle, or LEP, which simply states the longer a perpetrator is in a crime scene, the more evidence will be left behind. Certainly with a pestiferous scene, pests will leave evidences behind. With true flies or filth flies, these are in the form of saliva and feces. Fly specs, abundance and ratios provide clues to filth fly pressure and resource site, reproductive site proximity. Of course, we can take measure of this or monitor this using slaviology and scatology, card spec thresholds, using blue index cards, which are more attractive to filth flies, to true flies, the terans, which we'll look at more later. Establish X number of specs per card threshold, place and map X number of cards within fly activity areas, gather and replace X number of cards, in X number of days. And then, of course, count the saliva and feces specks versus the card threshold. And for exceeded card thresholds, evaluate the effectiveness, fly controls, and adjust as needed. Card spec threshold assessments. Screen door, one of the best inventions in public health. Screens should be inspected for serviceability or need for repair or replacement. They should possess about 18 to 22 squares per linear inch for proper exclusion. Windows, doors, ventilation systems should be all part of the overall inspection protocol. For exclusion, proper exclusion, again, screen door, one of the best inventions in public health. Number one violation in third-party audits, cracks and gaps. These need to be inspected for, part of the inspection protocol. Certainly are a big part of third-party audits. And this, as you can see, is a very inappropriate and desperate attempt at a reparation of a significant opening in a facility or structure, elevation. Repairs should be of materials that exceed the substrate to be repaired, such as stainless steel or other appropriate materials. Again, cracks and gaps, number one violation in third-party audits, and very highly exploited by pests. Look at the food production chain. We are custodians of food production, processing, distribution, retail, and restaurant, protecting every element, every endeavor of the food production chain, guarding from pestiferity and contamination, and not allowing a restaurant to become a pestaurant. Certainly, restaurants purvey both food and a favorable experience. When the experience is unfavorable or negative or worse, certainly these opinions or opines become adverse public opinion, which is shared very, very rapidly through social media, which can affect not only the purveyor or provider of the food cuisine, and experience, but also the pest control operator of record can be part of an adverse public opinion, a negative assault on a reputation. So we look at the 8 families of bilth flies. We can sort of categorize them in the less than a quarter inch, greater than a quarter inch, less than a quarter inch, the Drosophilidae or the fruit flies, the Phoridae or the board flies, Psychotidae or moth flies, Ciaridae, which are dark-winged fungus gnats, Sphaeroceridae or the dung flies, and then of course the Calophorids, which are the bottle and blow flies, Mussidae, face flies, house flies, Sarcophagidae, which are the flesh flies. 8 families of filth flies leading to pestiferity. Look at that housefly life cycle, the complete metamorphosis or holometabolous for you entomology buffs, successfully inseminated female for assurance, preservation of the genome. The adult female housefly, after receiving and assessing numerous environmental microcues, will place eggs in a viable, highly viable environment for the offspring, non-parental care. Some will survive, many will perish, but some will survive. Place eggs, not lay them. Lays are random. There's nothing random about the placement of eggs by an adult filth fly. Eggs are placed, percolate. The maggots emerge or larvae emerge, go through 3 larval end stages or larval stages, peristalling around the hydroskeleton, pulling through with mouth hooks, breathing out of their backside through sporacular plates. Notably, sporacular plates can be utilized to identify maggot species through dichotomous keys. Feeding to that final stage, moving stomachs, and then move off into a xeriscape or a drier, cooler, shadowed area to pupate, sheltered area to pupate. The pre-adult fly utilizes a talinum organ, expands that one-time use organ in its head, splits the suture on the pupil casing, emerges successfully, hopefully successfully for the fly anyway, and then moves off into a secluded area to dry down its cuticle, move hemolymph through its wings to expand its wings, and then at the appropriate time take flight to start the cycle all over again. Notably, there's about 153,000 named species of dipterans, about 12,000 in North America, 200 pesky or so, but from a structural or urban consideration, far fewer than 200 antagonists that we certainly strategize against through integrated pest management. We have two flesh flies. Here we have an illustration of that sexual dimorphism noted earlier, where you see the male successfully inseminating the female. The male has a distinct or more of a distinction of the fly's compound eyes touching, whereas the female has a more of a distinct distance between the eyes. Certainly the compound eyes are about the same size on the male and female. However, as you can see, the female is significantly larger than the male, and so the compound eyes on the male's head cover more surface area, but also give the male a significant advantage at finding the female. The more fit males find the more fit females, and the result being the most viable sperm inseminates the female, and males notably will mate with several females. Survival of the species, preservation of that genome. A rather busy slide of the external anatomy of a fly. For time's sake, we want to look at or focus on these halteres. These are on we have the pro, meso, and metathoracic regions of the fly, middle there. These are on we look at the pro, meso, these are on the metathoracic section. These are halteres or metathoracic on those. And so these sort of modified wings, they're balancing organs that provide rapid feedback to wing steering muscles and stabilize the head. Allows flies to be excellent aviators, articulating in space and time, getting from one point to another very successfully, very short-lived, sometimes a few days to a few weeks. So they need to be very good at what they do, again, to preserve that genome for your Darwinian buffs, that survival, to evolve, continue to perpetuate their species. Halteres, unique to true flies or dipterans. Flies or filth flies are flying infections. Notably, along with the pseudoesophagus or the mouth parts of the filth fly, we have a term called chaetotaxy, which is the arrangement of sedae or hairs. Chaetotaxy, arrangement of sedae or hairs on the cuticle, head, wings, all the derivatives of the integument, everything there. Lots and lots of sedae or hairs providing additional surface area or capacity for filth flies to carry bacteria, viruses, protozoans, fungi, and other pathogens from filth to food and sensitive environments, sensitive spaces. Chaetotaxy, arrangement of sedae or hairs providing lots of surface area, significant to filth flies. One of the significant pathogens of flies, also of course many other pests, such as birds, rodents, and cockroaches, and others. Salmonellosis, which can result in headache, vomiting, diarrhea, intestinal inflammation. Very motile bacteria, causes some significant health issues. And very significant, regrettably very significant in children, can result in a large liver or hepatomegaly. So salmonella are a very significant pathogen monitored by FDA, USDA, and other organizations, but significant to foodborne illness, result in a number of foodborne illness concerns every year. Foodborne illness, FBI.
This is not IPM. This is IPM.
So if we utilize a little bit of IPM math, which is an excerpt from the IPM template of control measures, we can determine control measures, the appropriate control measures, and there's going to be more than one utilized, of course. We can determine the account type, which would be residential, commercial, industrial. Perhaps the more sophisticated, plus pests, there's always going to be more than one. Minus restrictions, what are the things we cannot do? And that will give our control measures. So really account type plus pests minus restrictions equals control measures. A little IPM math applied tells us what we cannot do so that we know what we can do as a function of these various controls. These are behavioral, physical, mechanical, biological, biorational, and chemical. Very important also within the IPM template, and integrated pest management is cyclical. It is cyclical and scientifically based. It's been recognized as a science by the National Academy of Science since the 1960s, an applied science, scientific method to outcompete that reproductive cycle, reproductive strategy of the pests or the antagonists at which we outcompete. So we certainly want to identify something correctly down to species, certainly ordinally, or ordinal entomologists, but we really want to get that pest identified down to species to understand its biology, behavior, its ecology, and its capacity to be pestiferous. We need a identifiable or credible specimen, not a stain or a crushed this or that or a bad image, a blurred image. We need a credible specimen or some sort of credible evidence to identify that pest down to species, and we don't want to risk our reputations on a bad identification. ID this, a credible specimen. Again, we see here that sexual dimorphism distinction of true flies. We see here the distance between the compound eyes, and we know what it is. Anyone? Aha! We have a female housefly, a credible specimen to ID. Excellent tool, the NPMA Field Guide Pro. It is a subscription-based app, updated regularly. Gives you excellent pest ID and field diagnostics. Highly recommend the NPMA Field Guide Pro. If you look at these filth flies in this illustration and the behavioral travel of flies, where we have illustrate perhaps from a landfill to a companion animal scat, off of the scat into a disgusting dumpster, out of the dumpster and into the restaurant, converting that restaurant instantaneously to a pestaurant. And as a result, filth fly presence, many factors and injurious factors. Filth flies contaminate food storages, food preparation services, food handling, food utensils, food served, and foods consumed by customers. They contaminate health inspections, customer presence, social media reviews, reputations, revenue, and convert restaurants into pestaurants. Filth fly presence. Certainly an inappropriate assessment intervention. Bug zapper doesn't even work right. As a result, we have pestiferity. In addition to the sort of last resort application, amateurish application of a bug zapper inappropriately placed not even working. And we have the, of course, notable reactions of flies are terrible. Is that a bug zapper? This is disgusting. I'm leaving. Got a fly swatter. Let's get out of here. Versus an appropriate assessment intervention. Wow, no flies. I don't see a bug zapper. Nice place to eat. Good food. Much better than last time. We'll be back. Of course, there are many parts of the globe where the threshold for filth fly tolerance is much higher, certainly approaching zero in many parts of the world as a function of food safety, protection of sensitive environments. Filth flies can lead to other concerns, mental health concerns such as nuisance and anxiety, exacerbating other psychopathies just by their sheer presence, certainly be repugnant and can result in a negative experience in a restaurant. And again, the negative social media reviews that assault to a well-established and laboriously established top of mind awareness or good reputation can be very, very detrimental to a good reputation. Have the master cleaning schedule. Look at some cleaning efforts here. Resource cleaning audit. Resource cleaning using sterilant sanitizers and cleansers to clean surfaces. The master cleaning schedule is an excellent document, excellent evidence to investigate. I highly recommend that this document be sought out as one of the first parts of your inspection after interviewing the appropriate cohorts within that facility and getting their testimony on the sorts of pestiferity and the previous interventions that have been conducted. Master cleaning schedule, MCS, has to be current, accurate, include frequency of activities, personnel responsible, what are the post-cleaning evaluation techniques, how do we know it's clean, visual inspections, allergen testing, preoperative inspections, equipment swabs, documented corrective actions, the one I like real well, adenosine triphosphate testing or ATP, which is expressed obviously in mitochondria at cellular level, but ATP residues are indicative of something has been there that's alive or a pest. Very importantly is that MCS fact or fiction. Along with resource cleaning, we can look at small fly pressure from these microenvironments. They have a preference for warmer temperatures. You take floor level surveys using a laser thermometer. Floor level temperatures that are greater than 70 degrees tend to favor activity. Under 60 degrees tend to reduce activity. So certainly pests require four things, and that is heat, food, water, shelter, and in addition to that, all occurring within a space. We have resource cleaning using a bacterially based cleaner, which is foamed on a surface to provide a reduction using beneficial bacteria to reduce organic buildups. Of course, the bacteria double the number about every 18 to 22 minutes or so, consuming organic materials and only leaving behind carbon dioxide and water. Resource cleaning. Same application in a floor drain, foaming a disgusting drain with a biological cleaner to reduce and eliminate organic buildups using beneficial bacteria. Resource cleaning. In addition to resource cleaning, we have organizational cleaning. If you see lots of spills, poor organizational cleaning. Organizational cleaning is rotation. Organizational cleaning is about implementing last in, first out, first in, first out, first to expire, first out, definitely strategies for rotation, but organizational cleaning should be conducted and assessed. And certainly when we have lots of spills, we know we have poor organizational cleaning. We need to control spills through proper rotation. In a restaurant, expensive produce can be placed and physically excluded in a cooler It is expensive space, but so is produce, and we can certainly extend the shelf life, the usability in cuisine, cooking for the produce, and certainly physically exclude it from drop facility, the fruit flies, control spills. Got trash? You have the number one pest attraction. Got trash? Get number one pest attraction. Got stink? Get pests. Aha, we have discovered here, what is it? Anyone? We have a male fly. Very good. So, that stink thing attracts flies from a number of different areas and a considerable distance. We know that the funiculus, the antennae, are the sort of the nose of the fly, if you will, one of the olfactoral sense areas of filth flies. These are enclosed axons, funiculus meaning slender rope. We know that flies are highly attracted to various food scents, food molecules, and we know this because we've used an electroenteniogram, an EAG electroenteniogram. They pass odors over the head for a response. The more response they get, the more attraction to that external stimulus or that malodor. So we know that flies are attracted to stink. Got trash, got stink, got flies. From a pest plate, to your plate, look at the cumulative assaults of pests and their contamination from the vertebrates and invertebrates cumulatively. This is a representation of what we're looking at, certainly from a foodborne illness potential, significant potential for foodborne illness from pestiferity, those flying infections. Got trash? Again, get number one pest attractant. We have to have trash management. We have to be another hat. We are pest management professionals. We are public health professionals. We are slaviologists. We are scatologists. And now we are dumpsterologists and trashologists. Dumpsterology, distance, desiccation, and denial. Nothing is more effective at limiting fly infestations than sanitation. Very, very true, very well demonstrated. In dumpsterology, maintaining distance, desiccation, and denial. As dumpsterologists, studying these dumpsters to determine what's going on and intervene with best practices. And those are distance, keeping that dumpster enclosure in a properly designed corral. This should be conducted as part of the architectural design of the facility, certainly more added, but from an architectural sense, and not necessarily in an amateurish last attempt or desperate attempt to place a dumpster in an inappropriate areas. We look at these dumpster enclosures. We have at the enclosure at distance, we have a proper dumpster, proper enclosure, have a access double opening gate, which moves at 180 degrees. We have that dumpster at least 15 meters or 50 feet from the facility. We protect that dumpster with bump posts on the backside, keep it from damaging the dumpster corral enclosure during transition of dumpsters. We flank the dumpster corral with rodent control, maybe using remote sensing. The same with fly control in the back to attract flies away from the front and to the point where we want them. Distance. Got random? Get pests. And more than pests, more than pestiferity, a crime scene. Random placement of dumpsters can result in crime of various types, So dumpster placements should be studied and properly designed again architecturally and utilized using appropriate protocols. Dumpsterology. Dumpsters can be monitored using a camera, monitor for criminal activity, illegal dumping, dumpster divers, and of course, pestiferity, such as urban wildlife.
Dumpster guard digests organic matter, eliminates malodors, and is non-pathogenic and non-polluting. Bio-enhanced for superior organic degradation. Exceptional cleaning capabilities. No harsh chemicals and solvent-free. Keeps customers and neighbors happy.
So we apply resource cleaning. You have PC on one side, pest control, and RC on the other, resource cleaning, two distinct programs you can offer your customers and clients. And desiccation, keeping the dumpster clean, keeping those organic materials reduced, and allowing these environments to be utilized more appropriately to protocol. Denial, that's certainly now we have dumpsters that are underground. The volume of waste or trash is maintained in reservoirs underground and serviced appropriately, arresting malodors as well as a nuisance attraction of pests and potentially resulting in crime scenes and other sorts of things we do not want to see going on in and around our facilities. A proper dumpster corral with appropriate cleaning, certainly a little bit better than we see on the tarmac here or the grade level here, but we have a pretty good illustration of a good enclosure, perhaps reducing the vegetation on either side, but at the very least, flanking positions of rodent control and fly control using outdoor electronic fly killers, high IP rating fly killers, which attract flies away from that particular sensitive area and to an area where you want them, a push-pull, pushing the flies to where you want them, pulling them away from where you don't want them. Again, flanking positions, denying pests. You can also remote sense with cameras, trail cameras and other types. Do census, monitoring and census for pestiferity, particularly at night. We can do excellent surveillance for pests using remote sensing cameras. Here's an illustration of a remote sensing camera. Obviously, considerable rat activity at night. Infrared device, which is motion activated and records as long as motion exists. Here we can see a number of different rats in around a trashy environment. Got trash, get number one pest attraction. In this particular case, we can see what that is and the type of behavior going on and make an assessment, design the appropriate integrated pest management based interventions. We look at the photoscape of a plant or a facility. We want a photoscape that is pest averse. We can do that by not putting blue light on the building. Blue light is 112 times more attractive than yellow. We can domesticate the light attraction by reversing the lighting and using it as a strategy in our favor, where we can attract pests away from the facility using mercury vapor, as noted here, in flanking positions, and then illuminating the building, the parking lot in sodium vapor or yellow. This can certainly be an LED scheme, lighting scheme, but understanding the basic photoscape of a plant can give great respite and rescue from flying insect pressure, pest pressure, by just addressing the lighting appropriately. We have, of course, a sort of utopian example, if you will, of that to illustrate. Here we have excellent exclusion, excellent slope to grade, excellent drainage, no potholes. We have excellent exclusion, The service doors all fit correctly, the appropriate lighting, positive pressure, proper ventilation, proper screening, all the things in place to reduce or eliminate pest pressures and those pesky flies. With negative pressure, we can certainly adjust the air intake through the high vac where we have air intake exceeding air exhaust by greater than 10% to give appropriate positive pressure. If we look at intervening with air curtains, we can use devices to measure air velocity and document and assess negative pressure in transition to positive pressure using air curtains that are NSF, NSI 37 rated. And the recommended air velocities for an overhead door are 9 meters per second, service door 3 meters per second, and a drive-through window or drive-through door 3 meters per second. Positive pressure. Of course, in a pestaurant, we have lots of food scents and malodors, food molecules, if you will, in the air. They're highly attractive to pests. Plus, it's warm, so it increases the pestiferous attraction potential. We know that from the funiculus, or the fly's nose, roof chemistry, warm air emissions, cool air emissions, which can also be assessed using an infrared camera. We have these devices now to see the heat. Pests need heat. They need water, they need food, they need shelter, and they need space. So we can see the heat with infrared cameras now that are available for our smartphones, and we can utilize those through an app, various palettes to determine and contrast pest attractions and pest activity. Infrared surveys, excellent, excellent tool. Notably, not forgetting about the subterranea, what's going on under our feet, doing routine, not necessarily reactive camera inspections of the subterranean drainage, waste, and vent, but doing programmatic or routine inspections of the drainage, waste, and vent with cameras and documenting and assessing the discoveries as a result of these inspections. Certainly, we do not want this broken sewer line, which can lead to effluents, black water, effluents into soil, infiltrating into soil, and resulting in forward fly flushes and other pestiferity, malodors, and a number of other considerations. So conducting routine sewer inspections and drainage, waste, and vent inspections is highly recommended in all facilities. Want to avoid APNs, or attractive pestiferous nuisances. Attractive pestiferous nuisances. Boneyards. Here we have everything being done right in the appropriate facility operations, but now somebody's made an independent corporate decision to place pallets there. Somebody else votes a yay on that one and adds to it. Next thing we know, we have cluttered conditions, the boneyards, which do nothing but grow, and in many cases may end up on the roof, resulting in a number of other considerations, such as violation of building codes, public health codes, and assaults and damages to the structure. APNs, potholes, another big one. Available water, attractive pestiferous nuisance, attractive to rodents, birds, insects, the whole cast of characters. Again, a major part of any third-party audit. No dust from the parking lots and no potholes. We know that 365 nanometers at 350 to 370 nanometer, particularly 365, is very attractive to fill flies. We know that from how that light contacts the compound eyes through lux, which is the illumination, or 1 lumen at 1 meter squared over, the illumination of 1 lumen over 1 square meter at 1 meter. And 1 lumen is 1 birthday candle, 1 foot. We know how that light bathes the corona of the compound eye, and that makes that particular wavelength of light very attractive, resulting in an action potentials that will stimulate the fly to move to that particular external stimulus. We know that flies have a much faster perception of light. Houseflies possess about 8 types of photoreceptors, especially attracted to blue and violet, and detect changes in light or motion 10 times faster than humans. For example, a 24 frame per second movie would be like a slideshow to a fly, or the overhead ambient lighting in a room would be like a strobe to a housefly or a fill fly. But we know this, and so the UVA emitted from an insect light trap has to have a specific photon energy to lead to that neurological reaction from the external stimulus. So the housefly is attracted to, or the fill fly is attracted to it. And we know this through electroretinograms or ERGs. This is rhodopsin, the rhodopsin protein molecule, rhodopsin protein structure. This is the sensitive light pigment involved in visual processing. And essentially, ILT's mode of action, or mode of attraction, if you will, would be, for ILTs, is domestication of the rhodopsin protein. Again, through numerous studies, ERGs, and reproducible results, scientific method, we know that flies in high fluorescent UVA light or true photon energy UVA light at about that 365 nanometer range, 370 nanometer range, are highly attractive, and flies will move upward, wing beat harmonics toward that particular stimulus. Again, we know this from numerous studies conducted using electroretinograms and responses to various wavelengths of light by fill flies. So we're using that heavy investment by true flies or dipterans in visual physiology and anatomy. We're domesticating that, using that against them. We know it's highly attractive, and so we utilize devices to use that particular behavior against them. One of those tools is obviously an insect light trap, which contains fluorescent UVA lamps or LEDs, a little bit of bulb 101. Here we know that this particular lamp is made by Pestaurant. It's a 25 watt lamp. It's 1 inch in diameter. It's 18 inches long. It's 365 nanometers. It does contain mercury, so do not dispose fluorescent lights, or excuse me, do not dispose of fluorescent lamps or tubes in dumpsters. We can provide a service called Mad Hatter. Pestaurant has a service called Mad Hatter. Fill it, seal it, send it, and we'll take care of those fluorescent lamps, not only from insect light traps, but from overhead lighting. Mad Hatter. There are a number of ILT deployment best practices that one should observe for optimum attraction, capture, and census of flies. Among those, the most important are deploy ILTs to maintain line of sight, then height. A line of sight, then height. Flies can't see it. They can't react to it. There are a number of others. Keep ILTs at greater than 10 feet from food contact surfaces, and a number of others as indicated here on the slide. Insect light trap strategies are best placed in redundant fashion or flanking fashion. Bluebird ILTs are obviously used more than EFKs. Flanking positions work the best, are more effective, complementing each other. When used, insect light traps assist in the identification and monitoring of flying insects. American Institute of Baking. Here is a small illustration of placement of light traps in flanking positions, moving from an area of receiving into a wet area where we have ingress protection systems, moving back out of the wet area and back into the dry areas. Notably, in this configuration, you're not placing insect light traps in processing areas or inside internal receiving areas, so that you do not attract pests into these sensitive areas, but flanking positions, the outside of these areas and orbit of these areas, and perimeter of these areas to attract flies that pull flies away from where we don't want them, push them away from, or pull flies to where we want them and push flies away from where we don't want them. That push-pull strategy. Various types. Electronic fly killers, of course, use high voltage and low amperage, which equals a high resistance to current. They simply stun flies. They're not bug zappers. They do not explode the insects into fragments. They simply incapacitate neurologically or stun the fly so that it's incapacitated permanently and then dies subsequently in a capture tray, which has a damper on it to resist air currents to blow flies back out. Here you have our Quattro, which is a T5 system. Bottom of that insect light trap over the top of the overhead door in a perpendicular configuration so that if the overhead door is opened, we do not have UVA light emitting through the overhead door to attract pests from the exterior. We have flanking position of an electronic fly killer in the corner, flanking overhead door area to protect this area. Electronic fly killers are excellent for capturing in mass numbers of filth flies. Here we have evidence of that attraction and capture, stunning the flies, dropping them into a capture tray. This in placement after only a few minutes. Here we have a capture tray full of insects, filth flies, notably house flies. Again, electronic fly killers result in a neurotissue infarction. The fly is incapacitated by the stun grid, does not recover, and dies subsequently. Interestingly, in EFKs, 72% of the flies showed no loss of legs, and 60% of the flies showed no damage to the wings in one particular study. We have various deployments of insect light traps, no space or areas on walls or vertical surfaces, no problem, put it in the ceiling. 360 degrees of attraction. Systems for those areas between back of the house and front of the house. Here we have a Manus Vega, which is a T5 configuration insect light trap. Quite attractive for those areas in between back of the house and front of the house, and very effective. Wall sconce system, Cirrus for the front of the house. Pest West has systems for every environment, whether from the front of the house, aesthetically pleasing, to the back of the house, more utility, all the way to more challenging environments of, say, explosive environments where you have dust or distillates or other types. Whatever environment, we have a system to serve that and protect that environment. Here we have two uplight wall sconces in flanking positions to protect the sensitive environment in between. Again, flanking positions, very effective at fly capture, census, control, and assessment. Protect the exterior using the same strategy. The rather popular significant dining areas on the exterior, protecting those areas in flanking positions. Here we have two Titan 200 electronic fly killers to attract, again, that push-pull, push pests or flying insects from where we don't want them and pull them to the areas that we do want them. Push-pull strategy. Question quite often comes up, do we want to put insect light traps in operating theaters or operating rooms or infusion areas or dialysis areas or other highly sensitive areas? And the answer is no. Never place any traps inside individual ORs, or ICUs, or cath areas, yet in the adjacent hallways of the department is acceptable. This is from Dr. Ted Gronowski, BCE, a well-known individual in the pest management industry, many years of experience, and definitely a friend and mentor to myself, Dr. Ted Gronowski. I want to thank him also for his contributions to this program. ILT flanking deployments. Here is a gauntlet to intercept flies entering the hospital. We have an OR theater through the double doors. We have an aggressive ILT flanking configuration, again, to intercept flies before they intercept flying antagonists before they get to those double doors and prevent them from entering these really what we call hypersensitive areas, extremely sensitive areas. We also have ILTs flanking entry into food and nutrition from the hallway to the trash elevator, flanking positions in various configurations to protect these areas, to monitor, capture, control, and assess these areas for flying insect pressure. Times we get questions on regarding occupational exposures. There are no OSHA mandated employee exposure limits to ultraviolet radiation. There are threshold limit values for photobiological exposures, in particular to the eyes. It is recommended that systems under 10 watts that are emitting at 10 watts per meter squared be placed at 1 meter or greater from anyone in that working environment. We now have a novel LED system called Mantis Coelis. It's a 370 nanometer system. It's 5.6 watts. It emits at 360 degrees as opposed to 120 degrees with many other systems. We have a 91.2% capture, which equates to fluorescent lamp attraction and capture. And within this system, there are two Quantum X LED filament lamps. They're cooled with helium and again emit 360 degrees at true photon energy of 370 nanometers. You have a total of 864 filament LEDs at 20,000 hours of operation, highly energy efficient as opposed to other LED systems and certainly fluorescent systems. Our new Mantis Coelis. And then for remote sensing, we have our Fly Detect remote sensing system, which is utilized through a smartphone app, has a built-in resolution cameras to take an image of the entire glue board programmatically or on demand. Also gives you microclimate meteorology within that environment, but it captures one image per day at a selected time by you or on demand. You can set thresholds and a number of different tools for remote sensing. Fly Detect. Don't throw away those glue boards. You know what it was caught, how many, and why. You can glean a lot of information from glue boards, direction of insects, the direction the insects came onto the glue board, captured, distribution of species, the density of one particular, or say one or two particular species for assessment. Of course, we assess through trends analysis, which is basically the concept of what happened in the past provides an idea of what will happen in the future. Trends analyses. From trends analyses, we can determine RCA, or root cause analyses. We identify the problem, we define what the problem is, then we understand the problem, then we study that problem and determine a root cause. We correct that root cause and monitor the correction. Illustration of that would be the no open door policy, or why is the door open? We can use the 5 whys of causation. Why is the door a pest problem? Well, because it requires weather stripping. Why is the weather stripping required? Because the door is warped. Why is the door warped? Well, employees prop the door open. Why do employees prop the door open? Well, to go out and smoke. Well, why do employees go out and smoke? Because they can get away with it. Solution: monitor the corrective action, a door sensor. Trends analyses and root cause analyses provide best practices for insect light trap deployments. Again, the 8 families of filth flies, raising our fly IQ, small flies less than a quarter inch, Drosophilidae or fruit flies, forward flies, Psychodidae moth flies, Ciaridae darkwing fungus gnat particularly, or notably, Sphericeridae dung flies, those large flies greater than 1/4 of an inch, Californidae, Mussidae, Californidae being the bottle flies and blowflies, Mussidae being the face flies and house flies, and the Sarcophagidae, which are the flesh flies. Again, 8 families of bilth flies. Notably, we want those exclusion tolerances at 6 millimeters or less in that archopestology for proper exclusion. Archopestology, how insects interact with architecture. And we've looked at several examples of those, including dumpsterology, having that dumpster enclosure architecturally designed and appropriate to the facility. Pest West can provide you with an on-demand webinar. We can provide you with a scheduled webinar. We have on-demand webinars in the pipeline of pesky flies. You can request this program or others through the link at the QR code. We provide webinars for your team. We're happy to do that. We can also help you with glue boards. You can submit images or video of Pest West glue boards, and we'll help you glean a gold mine of information from your glue boards. We can also help you with best practices for insect light trap placement. Happy to do all those things as you partner with Pest West and help we assist you in those pesky flies and raising your fly IQ. I want to thank Dr. Ted Granosky for his contributions to this program. And with that, we all despise pesky flies. However, there's trash and cash. And with that, I want to thank you for stopping a restaurant from becoming a pestaurant. I'm Dr. Stuart Mitchell with Pest West. Hopefully we have raised your fly IQ too. I thank you very much.